Washington on the night of October 23rd last, in an apartment out near Georgetown. Someone got pushed a little too far, or went completely nuts, or something. At any rate, whoever it was picked up a letter opener and shoved it into the back of a man. A young man who had no known reason for being in that apartment. The guy was found on the floor, completely dead. His name was Philip Mason, and he had at least one friend to cry over him. Now, this would have been fine with me. I publish a weekly magazine, the Washington Observer, and usually we have no truck with murders. But a friend of mine, Stephen McElroy, the best non-writing writer I have on the staff, is a bug about puzzles. And give him a mystery puzzle and he's a brooding idiot. Well, he'd been doing some first-rate brooding ever since he'd read the Bulldog Edition's account of the murder. As the newspapers had it, Philip Mason, young man about town, had been killed in the apartment of Mr. and Mrs. John Packer. And Mrs. Packer had been the one who found him on the floor. That's what she said. Well, the whole thing got Stephen into one of his puzzle spins, and naturally he's got to talk to me about it because he's finally made me almost as batty as he is about these things. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, but that didn't bother Stephen once he was spinning.
It's Mr. McElroy, Mr. Dobbs.
2 blues.
He'll just keep on ringing.
Hello?
Hey, Dobbs. Why would a woman insist she was innocent of killing a man in the face of overwhelming evidence that she was guilty?
Stephen, apparently you finally lost all of your mind, bothering me at a time like this with some such nonsense when I'm up to my ears.
Why would she say she was innocent when she hasn't got a ghost of a chance of proving it?
I haven't the remotest idea what you're talking about.
Well, haven't you read the morning's paper?
Look, Stephen, why don't you put your remarkable, if vagrant little mind to work on one of your pieces and get some writing done? Let me get back to my own work.
Hello, Stephen. I found the door unlocked.
Why, Amanda, so you did.
I've been to a progressive party. I thought I might make it even more progressive.
Well, that's very thoughtful of you.
Well, you have to finish working sometime. Can I give you a lift?
My love, you already have.
Well, by about 4 o'clock that morning, Stephen was still spinning in his own fashion. And by that time, he'd got me caught, too.
Hello?
All right, why does she?
Why
does she say she was innocent?
Who?
The woman.
Oh, yes, that woman, Dobbs. Well, because she is, of course.
You're talking about the Packer woman, aren't you? I sent out for the morning papers. But why is she innocent? How do you know?
I don't quite know, but I think she must be either innocent or not. Anyhow, this is no time to discuss it.
Why isn't it? I can't get to sleep, so why isn't it? Now, look, this lieutenant says...
It's unimportant what he says. In my book, she's innocent.
I wouldn't for the world spoil the fun you two have.
Even when you get rid of her, whoever she is...
Hey, Amanda, come back, please. Look, don't go away. Please come back.
Stephen, are you listening to me? Stephen?
Yes.
We decided we'd have to talk to the lieutenant who was handling the case. Some guy Stephen knew. So we went way far and gone out to where he lived. It was still a little early, but after all, we were only trying to help the man.
I'm coming.
Hello, Leo.
Stephen, what's happened?
Lieutenant Brennan, this is Mr. Dobbs, Mr. Charles Dobbs.
Lieutenant Brennan. Say, you're the fellow that jugged those Santley brothers, aren't you? We've been sitting on your stoop waiting for it to get light. This is quite a neighborhood you have around here, Lieutenant. Does everybody sleep this late? Do you mind if we come in?
No, just a moment, Stephen.
Just as a personal favor, Leo.
Look, I don't care if this guy does write speeches for everybody in the administration.
We've been waiting out there for 45 minutes. Just one question.
Stephen, one day I am going
I know, you're just the guy who can do it, too.
You, haven't read the morning paper yet, Lieutenant. We can't make much sense out of their version.
Tell me, are you guys swacked?
I never touched the stuff myself. Stomach. You go ahead, Stephen, if you have to.
Thank you. The Packer woman, Leo. A young and beautiful Mrs. Packer, you booked on suspicion of murder.
You know, I should have listened to my father. Never, he said, never make friends with a writer.
Your dad was quite right. You wouldn't like to make us some coffee, would you, Leo?
No, I would like for you to ask your question, supposing that you have one, and then get out of here.
It seems this woman quarreled with some guy.
Mr. Philip Mason.
She stabbed the fellow somewhat viciously. Then she called her husband, who was working in his office. And when he got home, acting upon his advice, she then called the police. That right, Lieutenant?
Yes, that's right.
Now, the question we want to ask you, Leo, is why a woman in such a situation claims to be not guilty.
Well, who knows? Hysteria, shock.
And can you prove that Mr. Mason was her boyfriend?
I will, unless she admits it.
Lieutenant, do you believe that she stabbed this fellow?
Well, it's a reasonable assumption under the circumstances.
And you have absolute proof the husband was working in his office.
Oh, the night watchman of the building. You see, no one can get in or out of that office building after 6, unless the night watchman unlocks the door. Look, she invited the boyfriend over to the apartment, knowing the husband was working. They get into an argument, she sticks him. Now, she panics. As soon as she finds out that he's dead, calls the husband, he comes right over. But what can they do? They can't just carry out the body and lose it. He knows better than that. So he has her call us.
And plead self-defense.
Maybe.
But she doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
That's just it. Now, why would she say she walked in and found Mason on the floor?
Well, I can't answer that question. Nobody can.
So there we were, back where we'd started, and Stephen still had his bug, and there was no answer to why the girl had not pleaded self-defense. The only way to find out was to ask the girl herself. So Stephen went on to see what he could charm out of her.